You rely on this podcast to stay informed and connected with your local community, and we rely on you. Without listener support, this show simply wouldn't exist. Be a part of the team that makes this show possible by donating to our home, KUOW. It only takes a minute. Donate at KUOW.org or follow the link in the show notes. And thank you.
You're listening to Soundside. I'm Diana Opong. Picture a historic church in Tacoma's Proctor neighborhood, bathed in afternoon sunlight, poised for dramatic transformation. Julie Cain, who purchased the church in 2021, envisions turning it into affordable housing for young adults. The project aims to address local housing needs and foster supportive community, with plans for shared rooms and communal spaces. However, the ambitious plan has sparked mixed reactions from neighbors concerned about traffic, parking, and overall neighborhood changes. Back in June, the city issued a permit for converting the church, albeit with some limitations. Neither side liked that outcome, and both requested a reconsideration. Yesterday, the city denied both requests, so now no one's happy. To help us understand the vision and the challenges of this project is Becca Most. She's the Pierce County reporter for the Tacoma News Tribune. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, can we start by describing Julie Cain's vision for this project and what the transformation of this historic church would even look like?
Definitely. So I toured the space back in February, and Julie was telling me she kind of paints this vision of communal living where tenants age 18 to 26 could rent shared or single rooms and have shared bathrooms, a large kitchen, lots of community space. She's told me that she wants it to be a faith-based campus, although people from other denominations that aren't Christian are welcome to, and there would be a residential director on site.
The project aims to provide affordable housing and create a supportive community space for young adults. How does this plan address Tacoma's current housing shortage?
Yeah, Tacoma does, like many other places in Washington, is kind of struggling with a housing crisis where, as more people kind of move out of Seattle and King County, that's also raising the rent here and contributing to gentrification in Tacoma as well. And so this project is really interesting because it's one of the only ones that I've seen about that addresses, shared group housing as an alternative to market rate housing and other,
single family homes. Yeah.
Single family homes and things like that.
And why young adult housing? Obviously, there are people over the age of 26 who need housing as well. What planned features are specifically geared towards them?
Yeah, that's a great question. This project is interesting too because it really kind of focuses on youth, which is, a demographic you don't really see, the city or the county really talking about. There's a lot of discussion about, well, how do we help, low-income seniors or, people experiencing homelessness or kind of transitioning out of homelessness. Julie Cain has told me that youth are really a focus of hers because she and her husband are pretty involved with young adults. Her husband, Andrew, is a middle school principal in Port Orchard. Cain has been a youth soccer coach for many years, and both are involved in ministry work. And she's told me that in that experience, they've seen a lot of young people kind of struggling right now, wanting to move out of their parents' houses, but struggling to find a community and a place to do that. And so, with this church being located, close to a lot of colleges, including University of Puget Sound, and it's on a bus line and stuff like that, she's kind of painting this vision of kind of shared living as an alternative and as a way to find community and connections.
Helping young people who might have a strong need sort of launch in a safe way that hopefully isn't too cost effective. Now, I know the project has gotten some pushback from a local neighborhood group. What are they concerned about?
Yeah, so a lot of neighbors have told me they're concerned about, how this will change the neighborhood. It's a lot of single family homes, a lot of, young kids in the neighborhood too. They're concerned about parking. They're concerned about traffic and littering and other things like that. Julie has told me that the campus would be dry and that there would be, a resident advisor on site to kind of mitigate a lot of those issues. And she's told me that she's really open to talking to the community and wants to do community engagement and other things as well. It's interesting, although Julie has kind of told me and pitched this as an affordable site, a lot of neighbors are kind of questioning that. In the proposal that she submitted to the city, She proposed each bedroom to have 3 to 7 beds, and rents would range from $500 to $900 or more a month. And so a lot of neighbors had come to me with concerns about, is that truly affordable? And I don't believe that meets, the kind of the threshold definition of affordable housing, when you take in area median income and things like that.
Back in June, the city of Tacoma issued a project permit allowing the church to be converted. But both Julie Cain and North Tacoma Neighbors United are displeased. Why exactly are both of them upset?
Yeah. So, Julie Cain has told me that they really want 51 people to live there, not 29. And that's kind of their main concern. They're concerned that's not going to cover their renovation costs that the city is going to require them to do, or kind of operation costs. Neighbors have argued that, under the current zoning of the site, only 6 people should be allowed, in the space, or, they said that the permit should be denied outright.
Yesterday, the city of Tacoma rejected 2 requests to reconsider the permit, one from Julie Cain and one from North Tacoma Neighbors United. What did the city say about why it rejected both requests?
Although the director of planning and development services in Tacoma, Peter Huffman, said, he understood both the neighbors and development's perspective, he affirmed his original decision to limit occupancy to 29 people. He said, although the zoning capacity is likely to increase in the coming year as part of the city's affordable housing action and growth strategy plan, Home in Tacoma, it still is being reviewed under the codes in place, and the city does have the authority to limit occupancy because the structure is not originally designed for dwelling units. But he's saying, neighbor opposition alone can't be the basis for, rendering the land use decision. And, that if the Warner Street Amici House LLC owners want to move forward with this, they will still have to meet the conditions like installing landscape buffers, increasing street lighting, maintaining yard space, and commencing work on that within 5 years. Yeah, he's kind of saying, if they're able to do this, they are allowed to do this.
So, Becca, I want to make sure I understand that. So from Julie Cain's side, the main concern is the occupancy, right? And the cost it's going to take to get the building up to code.
Yes.
North Tacoma Neighbors United, their concern is it existing at all and not wanting to worry about or having to deal with traffic and parking and some of the other concerns that they have. Is that mainly the issue?
Yeah, there's a couple other issues too. They kind of, in their original request for reconsideration, they alleged there were some inconsistencies between, the math that the, directors made to make the decision and other things like that. They also noted a concern about, potential violations of the Fair Housing Act. In limiting it to, people with religious affiliation or even youth in a certain age range. Peter Huffman said in his original decision, that's kind of an issue for the court, not the city, to decide.
Right. So where does that leave the project today? What's next for those involved?
Yeah, so both parties, the neighbors and the building owner, have 7 days to decide if they want to appeal the decision to the city's hearing examiner. And then as of yesterday afternoon, both parties told me they haven't decided if they're going to appeal. I spoke with a neighbor with North Tacoma Neighbors United, who said that neighbors will be meeting this week to discuss the issue a little bit more. And Julie told me yesterday that they just received the information and need more time to think about the next steps for the project too, including, I assume, the viability of the project as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see shortly kind of what decisions they make.
Yeah, with the low number comparative to what Julie wants and the money needed to do all of the refurbishment and changes, I can see why that's something they're going to really have to consider where that money is going to come from. Julie Cain has noted that similar projects have seen success in other locations such as Silverdale. What can you tell us about the outcomes of these similar projects and how they might influence this one?
Yeah, I actually don't know much about those other projects, but based on what Julie's told me, she said the same group bought another church in Port Orchard to convert into a similar model of young adult housing, which is expected to open in September. And she's told me that project has seen success, but that's kind of all I know about that.
Based on your reporting, what does this project say about the current state of housing affordability in Tacoma? Obviously, there is an issue with not having enough housing that is affordable for all. But what do you think this project says?
Yeah, I think this project is definitely something new and kind of emphasizes that the city of Tacoma is open to a lot of different types of housing projects. I know their Home in Tacoma strategy is kind of looking to change code and zoning to allow more new types of housing to be constructed, including, shared group housing here. As more people are moving into unincorporated Pierce County, that's having a lot of issues as well, because a lot of those areas have been, underdeveloped and under invested in over many decades. And so I've talked to a lot of, people with the Bethel School District, especially, who are saying, our kids don't have sidewalks or adequate street lighting and stuff. And so, as more people are moving into areas that don't have, the traditional resources a city would have, or, zoning regulations, that's going to have a lot of effects on people's quality of life and housing as well. It's interesting, last night, the Pierce County Council passed this controversial zoning ordinance that would make it easier to build, tiny home villages and temporary homeless shelters in unincorporated Pierce County. And, that had failed a couple months ago. And even though it's passed, along party lines, with Democrats with a slight majority, the Republican executive Bruce Dameyer announced he's going to veto it today. So it really just kind of talks to, the political nature of, differing opinions on how to address housing and how to address homelessness and affordable housing, in a time that, a lot of people are, really struggling and feeling those impacts firsthand.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about, Becca, that you think is really important for listeners to know?
Yeah, I think the only other thing to add is, I think this project just really speaks to a lot of the, kind of technical barriers in building new housing, too, and kind of the permits required and the zoning required to allow all this to happen. So it'll be interesting to watch as the city and the county continues to kind of update their growth strategies and, look to address a variety of different housing projects in the future.
Becca Most is the Pierce County reporter for the Tacoma News Tribune. Becca, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. By the way, this show is only possible because listeners support us. If you are able to give right now, check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.
Hi there, I'm Monica Guzman, host of A Braver Way podcast and your guide across the political divide. Are you done with the divisiveness in our politics and ready to do something about it? This season, we've partnered with KUOW to reach more listeners like you. Join me as I sit down with guests from across the political spectrum. Together, we'll share tools, insights, and messy, real-life stories to help you face this election year without losing heart. Listen to A Braver Way now on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.